Welcome to the Turbo Duo podcast, the Turbo Duo Cast, episode 3. We are the higher energy superpower.
The higher energy superpower.
Yeah, it's an amalgamation of.
Can we just be the higher power?
No, welcome to the next level.
Oh.
The higher energy super system, TurboGrafx 16.
Oh, that's called the higher energy
The
system?
higher energy system, yeah. And then now you're playing with power, superpower.
Yep.
I mean, we got to work with it. So, welcome guys to our episode 3. Trenton's only been here for 5 minutes and he's already annoying me.
Mm-hmm.
On our last podcast, we talked about Turtles 1 and 2. Anything exciting happened since then? Any game pickups? Anything in the world of Trenton Wright exciting happening? Probably not.
No.
No?
Any game pickup? Well, no. I mean, we had the huge thing with all the games.
Right.
All the Genesis games and whatnot.
Was that after the episode, though? No, that was
yeah,
before, because I mentioned it.
Did
That's
you?
how we got Hyperstone Heist.
Oh, right. No game pickups, really.
I picked up Sonic Jam.
Just more wrestling figures for me.
That's right.
I got Tiny Toons 2 on Nintendo.
Is that like Buster's?
No, it's like
Buster Breaks Out or whatever?
No. You never played the first one on Nintendo?
No.
By Konami?
No.
It's really good.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Like classic Konami goodness?
Yeah. Side scrolling. Yeah, it's really good.
Alright. Did you play that when you were a kid?
Oh, yes. But
Yep.
that's not why we're here.
No. No. I got Bug 2. I've barely played Bug 1.
But you have it.
Well, I think the most significant one that I picked up that isn't even like the most expensive, I got it for $15, was NBA Jam TE. Which I really want to play the Saturn or PlayStation version of that because I've heard that those are
Oh, the 6 scaling.
the top of the line. Yeah, you know. Well, the 32X one has that though.
Yeah.
You know, when the characters move up or down, there's some scaling going on there.
The Samurai Showdown of basketball.
Speaking of scaling, we're going to be talking about Turtles TMNT 4, which is Turtles in Time on Super Nintendo at some point, and that's got some nice scrolling and yeah, and flinging foot soldiers into the screen. I mean, if we're going by chronological release, we probably should talk about Turtles 4 first, but I don't want to do that. Turtles 4 did come out in the arcades before Turtles 3 came out on the Nintendo. You know, part of when I think like about the arcades, I almost feel like we were just a little too young. You know, even though like we were both born in '84, but I feel like really kind of that sweet spot of the arcade was that mid '80s. You know, to even maybe like 90 or 91, but we were only about 7 at that time. You know, when you had like all those classic beat 'em ups coming out, I mean, you could go and see games like, you know, Kung Fu and, you know, all the old like Data East arcade games and
Contra,
you know, Bad Dudes or Two Crude Dudes or a lot of these games that, you know, even Double Dragon. I mean, how many times have you seen a Double Dragon arcade cabinet?
I don't think I've ever seen one.
I discovered this podcast, this YouTube channel called Multimedia Chronicles. And this guy has a camera, basically he got in 1990, and he just films himself going to all these different places in 1990. And a lot of it is going to see like arcades or arcade machines and filming them. And I don't know why, but that thing kind of like, it just really, I get like enraptured with it. Like I need to watch like old arcade stuff. And people,
I get caught up.
They were playing Pit Fighter at a 7-Eleven.
Oh God, Pit Fighter.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Like the Pit Fighter arcade machine.
No, I got it.
And it's pretty awesome. I mean, to just see, I don't know how good the game was, but you know, to be at a place where you could kind of like it was Golden Axe and Pit Fighter right next to one another. You know, and then they had Mercs at another time, you know.
Mercs is the jam.
So, I don't know. Like if we were 10 years older, apart from you probably being dead or looking much worse than you do today, I feel like we would have gotten that experience. So, you know, we did kind of miss out on it, but enough of my tangent. We're here to talk about Turtles. You got to keep the turtle power going. And Turtles 3 is actually an interesting game. I think when I think back to my experience with the games, I never knew about Turtles 3 as a kid, but when we played it several years ago, I think it became my favorite Turtles game on the Nintendo.
I don't really remember that much about it now, because only played it 2 times, maybe?
Well, it kind of mirrors a little bit about what Turtles in Time had. It has characters like Slash in it.
Yeah.
It has Leatherhead in it, and kind of like chibi style characters of what was in Turtles in Time. But the game, I remember it being very much the arcade game, Turtles 2, but then like ramped up even more and even more refined, less glitchy, better layouts of the levels, more interesting levels, better graphics, and also we'll get to it. But another aspect that makes the game, I think, a lot even more playable. The interesting thing about Turtles 3, even though it was it probably is technically the best game. It might not be everybody's favorite on the original NES, but
that's because most people don't even really know about it.
So it came out in February of 1992, which by then everybody was talking about
Super Nintendo,
the 16-bit wars. TMNT 4 was going to be coming out in August, so everybody was hyped up for that. I have to imagine. There were almost no developers from the original 2 games that ended up developing Turtles 3. Almost all of the people that were working on the first 2 games now were working on Turtles 4, Turtles in Time. Because remember, Turtles in Time was an arcade game. It came out a few months before Turtles 3 did on the NES. So those developers were working on that arcade game. Remember, arcades were still big at the time. And so this B team was working on Turtles 3. And there was only one guy that had even any involvement with the other 2 games. His name was Masaki, I'm going to butcher this, Kishimoto.
Master Splinter.
Come on now. And he was a visual programmer. And this team, they kind of they had like this pride about themselves. They called themselves Eat, Sleep, and Play. And that's basically all they wanted to do. And it kind of shows in the game. Because I think the game's awesome. I can't wait to try it out again, and I have a strong feeling I'm gonna like it just as much as I did last time.
What? Play all night, sleep all day.
Oh, that's Slaughter. That's Slaughter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Up all night, sleep all. Up all night, sleep all day. Yeah. I got you. The game is actually now under the Konami name. So as we talked about in the last episode. Ultra Games was the subsidiary of Konami that was the publisher of those 2 games. By this point now, there is no need to have these separate arms to produce more games because Nintendo is in a full-fledged fight with Sega at this point, and they need
we want all the games.
They need all dicks on hand. Excuse me. They need all hands on deck. Did I say that wrong? I'm so sorry.
It all depends, baby.
Oh, shout out to the porn shop that we went to in South Carolina, 10 years ago now?
Oh, yeah.
So now under the Konami name, they're producing as many games as they want, and of course being Konami, pretty much everything they touched turned to gold, so they were allowed to produce as much as they wanted. Now it had that nice silver outline, which when you saw that at the video store, you knew you were getting a good game.
The silver outline. The what?
The Konami boxes were typically, and Konami cartridges typically had a silver background to them, or a silver outer edge to them.
What are you talking about?
So like the cartridge, the sticker on the cartridge, usually had silver on it.
On what games?
Hold on.
Oh, that. Oh, okay.
So the outside of the cartridges or the background of the cartridges were silver.
I was thinking like literally silver, okay.
You're thinking too deep.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
So Turtles 3 has that silver Konami background, and so like I said, Turtles 3 is known for having a lot more polish. The individual turtles actually have their own special moves this time. In Turtles 2, they didn't. They actually had all the same. If you hit A and B at the same time, they would all have the same special move, and you'd lose a bar of life, let's just say. And almost like in Streets of Rage 2, where you do your special move and you lose some health, but it kind of gets you out of a difficult situation. Each character has their own special move this time, which is kind of cool. the game is known also for being a little bit more even in its difficulty. It's not going to spike with a crazy difficulty, or the boss battles are going to be sort of insane. It's got a much more even difficulty, and if I remember correctly, I think the first time we played it, it was tough, but I think we beat it with like about a continue to go. We definitely got through the game. We didn't game over or anything like that.
I don't remember.
I do.
Thinking it was probably like 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
I think that was when I got it, I think.
Is that when you got it? When we played it?
I think it had to be from GameStop.
Well, we played it in 2012, I think. So it would have been 7 years ago now.
No, didn't we play it before then though?
No, we played it at my apartment after we had moved in.
That was the first time we played it?
Mm-hmm. That I played it. That's for sure.
I could have sworn we played it before when I was in Willimantic.
It was kind of one of those like aha moments. It's like I didn't even know that this existed, and it's amazing. So the story of Turtles 3 is that at the end of Turtles 2, the Turtles trap Shredder into Dimension X, and they believe he's going to be stuck there forever. But of course, just like Bowser, Shredder always comes back, finds his way back. He kidnaps April O'Neil, or Princess Peach, right? And he actually takes Manhattan Island and lifts it into the sky as a floating island.
The Manhattan Projects.
Right. So it actually doesn't have the title of the game is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the Manhattan Project, but it has nothing to do with the bomb. It's just sort of Shredder's Manhattan Project, so to speak. Now, the key difference about this game that I think is significant is that gone from 2 is the need to pull away from the enemies as you're fighting them. So what I mean by that is if you punch them, you can just keep wailing away on them. You don't need to back away from the character because they have some sort of invincibility.
Hit detection.
Right. Well, it gives them like a moment of invincibility where they can hit you and you can't hit them. In Turtles 3, they fixed that. So now it's just like playing any other traditional beat 'em up. You can keep wailing on them, and I think that makes for a much more
fluid game.
Yeah, enjoyable experience that you can just continue to focus on one guy and you don't have to pull away and then by chance maybe get sucked into another
battle.
Unless
you want to focus on multiple guys at a time.
That's something that you've told me you've been thinking about, and that's okay. I will support you if you want to do that in the game. All right. So I mean, not really much else to be said. It's a little bit of a longer game than Turtles 2. The levels are a little bit longer, and all in all, it's just a fantastic experience. It won Best NES Game of 1992 by the best magazine of all time.
The best.
Electronic Gaming
Monthly.
Yeah. Like you have the mumps. Monthly. So I'm needless to say, I'm excited to check out this game.
I mean, what were like the other games in contention, like Alfred Chicken?
In 1992, I mean, the NES was like in a tailspin at that point.
Not to be confused with the game Tailspin.
Oh boy, I really set myself up for that one. I mean,
I think Alfred Chicken was like one of the last games on Nintendo.
Kirby's Adventure, Mega Man 6. Right, those were all 1994 releases.
On Nintendo?
On NES. Yeah.
Well, hot damn.
Star Tropics 2, Zoda's Revenge.
Ooh.
But we're not talking about 1994. We're talking about the Nine Deuce, 1992.
Nine Deuce.
Do you have any recollection of this game? I mean, were we all focused on Turtles in Time at that point?
Yes. I had said goodbye to the Nintendo.
You hadn't had the Nintendo for that long, though, had you? You got it in what?
3 years.
1990?
89.
Oh, all right. So you had it for a few years then.
Yeah.
Okay. We had gotten our NES back on Parsonage Street in Rocky Hill,
yes.
1987, early on.
Oh, it's because you had an older brother.
Yeah. Well, I had an uncle who was 8 years older than me, so we basically just absorbed everything that they had. I've mentioned before that we had an Atari 7800, and then we ended up getting the NES shortly thereafter, which obviously was way better than the 7800. I mean, you can only play so much pole position too before you kind of get bored of that, you know. I talk all the time about going on an adventure in a video game, and there wasn't really much to be had on the except for Frogger. You got to give it up to Frogger always. Frogger is the king.
True.
Yep. Another Konami game, Frogger.
Well, you got a whole Konami cabinet over there.
I do. We have in the studio here. We've got a Konami arcade unit that's got a bunch of the classic NES games. Although I think they're better on NES than they are in the arcade. Well, a lot of them. I think Contra is definitely better on the NES. Blades of Steel is better on the NES. I can't speak for Gyrus because I've never played Gyrus on the NES, but I imagine the ball controller is probably better in that on the arcade unit.
Yeah.
So what do you say? Do you want to give TMNT 3 a shot? And
yes, because I don't remember most of it.
All right, and we'll come back and let you guys know what we're thinking about it. Stay tuned.
We're back.
All right, we're back from playing Turtles 3, and I have to say there's going to be some conflicting information here from what I said earlier. Actually, I have to say.
Contradictory conflicts.
All in all, it's still the same kind of perception, though. The game is way more ambitious, I think, in a lot of ways than Turtles 2, just with the sheer enemy count. I mean, just in that first level alone, I think we encountered at certain points, or the second level, the one where you're riding the surfboards.
Surfboard.
There were up to what?
Surfboard.
10 characters on screen at once.
It's just molasses.
It really it really slows down, but again,
it doesn't make it bad.
It's one of those things that in a beat 'em up, it doesn't. I don't really think it affects.
No, it doesn't make the game
as a whole
unplayable.
It's just the flow of it is just slow, which actually kind of helps sometimes because it helps you line up your attacks.
Just like shoot 'em ups. When the slowdown happens, that actually helps you.
Yeah, if you want to play In the Hunt on Sega Saturn, I'm
playing those shmups.
We'll say no. you can say shooter and you can say shoot 'em up.
Playing the shooter McGavins.
No, nobody that says shmup is allowed
in this house.
I don't know where people got that. I don't know if that's a younger generation thing. I've heard older people say it though, so it could have been just like where you were from, Like I know.
I don't associate with those types of people.
Well, I know the GameSack guys on YouTube. They say shmup, or at least the Nintendo guy does.
Just a cringe every time you hear it.
Oh gosh, I can't do it. Can't do it. And previously I was saying how they fixed the issue with invincibility with the enemies, but I coming away from playing it again for the first time in 7 years, I kind of don't agree with that. I think
it's the same.
You still have to back away a touch. It might not be as much as the second game where you don't have to do as much, it could be that when you hit them, they bounce back a little bit, and that causes, depending on if you're on the same plane or not. I'm not so sure, but I feel I wanted to keep backing away after I hit. My instinct was telling me, like Turtles 2, you need to kind of back away a little bit because I was getting damage when I was just trying to hit them constantly.
Oh yeah.
What else? Enemy variety I think is actually pretty good in this game.
Oh, definitely.
I think we played 3 levels, and I think we probably saw.
On that second level, there had to be at least 8 or 9.
Well, you had
different variations.
Yeah, you had the guys with swords, the guys with spears, the regular foot soldiers, the yellow guys who shoot sand.
The boulder guys.
Well, you've got the rock men. You've got the rock men who do the
gun,
the I-beam, and then the gun.
There was 2 different Foot Clans ones with the spears. There was ones that would. I think there was ones that would like kind of like hold it above the head, like throw it, and then there's other kinds just hold it like regular.
The ones that are straight out, almost like a Spartan, or like some kind of mythical.
And then you had
the whip guys. And then the blue guys that were in the machines when you were on
was that the third level? And then they had the blue Foot Clan that had the big bowling
boulders. Yeah, but there were the ones that were in like the air sort of machine gun machine, which is kind of like hovering above you and shooting bullets down, raining bullets down.
Turtles type.
Yeah. So all in all, still just a lot of fun. We got to Slash, and the game froze because I neglected to clean my cartridge.
Which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think we got enough of a cross section of the game.
The gist of it. I think the music in the second one is better.
Yeah, I agree.
Like that first level is just like pulsing.
Yeah.
And you just want to keep playing. This one is just kind of like it's like variations of the Turtles theme song. It's almost like just like kind of background music. Just kind of like they threw it in the game. I mean, it's not bad, but compared to the Turtles 2, the music in that is just way better.
Well, I think the first level of the first game though has an arranged version of the Turtles theme song, which
it kind of fits the mood.
It pumps
of what's going on in the game. Yeah.
It really, really pumps in that game. It makes you feel like, all right, I'm ready to.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. I agree. I think that the music is a little bit more. It's hard to place. It doesn't necessarily sound like it's Turtles music. You know?
I mean, I'd have to play them back to back, but I feel like the second one maybe plays a little faster too. Moves.
The one thing I liked about Turtles 3 is that I feel like it's more open. I feel like you've got more room, more room to move. And I think that's one of the reasons they did that is because there's so many enemies that they are putting on screen. You need to have that space. I mean, the surfing level, it kind of reminds me of the surfing level in Turtles in Time a little bit. There's actually
they had to have. Well, obviously, because it has a lot of the same enemies, too.
There was some parallax in the background. You see the clouds going by, and then, the land kind of passing slowly. I thought that was kind of cool. I forgot to say this earlier, but Shredder uses the Hyperstone, this crazy rare element rock from Dimension X that he brings back to lift Manhattan in the sky.
He's like, I'm taking April and Manhattan.
What does he say? Come and get me if you want to see them again. Like, who's them? Like all the people of Manhattan?
Yeah.
It starts.
It's really just about saving April.
It starts out
Manhattan.
Yeah. It starts out, of course, they're taking a vacation.
Yeah, from their 9-to-5 jobs of eating pizza and living in the sewer.
Well, I mean, if it takes place right after Turtles 2, then they're taking a vacation from getting rid of Shredder, right?
Yeah, just 4 big ass turtles chilling on the beach, normal things.
Hey, not a problem. We watched. It was funny because we had friends over a couple weeks ago, and the guy put on Turtles 1 on Amazon Prime, and so we watched all.
The movie.
We watched all of TMNT 1.
You watched the whole movie?
The live action, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I watched the whole movie. I still haven't watched Baby Boy. But I'm intending on it.
It's better that you don't at this point.
No, I'm intending on it. The point is I need to intend on watching it and never watch it. That's what keeps this thing going. Trenton let me borrow the movie Baby Boy.
Because it's great.
With what, Tyrese?
Yeah, Tyrese. He's the main character.
Yeah.
Y'all want some breakfast?
About 4 years ago,
Ving Rhames.
2 residences ago for me. And I still haven't watched it. Still have it.
It's like in the garage.
It's in the garage somewhere.
Sitting in front of the door for some reason.
It's got to sit right there, right on top of the lockbox. And I've got an intention to watch it. And that's all.
Everyone has intention to do things.
That's all that matters. Well, listen, it's good to have goals.
I wouldn't put watching Baby Boy at the top of my list.
Well, at this point, it's becoming an insurmountable one. So I would say it's probably a goal at this point. Oh, anything else to say about this game? The boss battles... at least the one that we got into was very pattern based, and I don't remember Turtles 2 having pattern based boss battles where you had to time what was happening with the boss, and then you had a window to hit them. The Turtles 2 game, I remember you'd have to do certain actions to hit the boss without getting hit by the boss. And
the first one, the first boss, which was Rocksteady, right?
Right, in the
both of them, they
apartment.
both use the same. No, what I'm saying in this game too is Rocksteady, but I don't know if he really had a pattern in this one. Really, it was like the same thing.
But he would load up to run, so you knew when he was going to do that.
Right. The second boss definitely he would run, and then he would just run off into the corner and keep running, and that's when you got to attack him.
He would get his steam up and then run right, left, right, or left, right, left, and then he would stick to that part of the screen for about 3 or 4 seconds where you could get in like 3, 4, 5
Just
hits.
mash him from behind.
Yeah, just beat on him from behind. And then about halfway through, he goes up to the wall and rips off a pipe.
Steel beam.
Which is awesome. I mean, that's just great. What can you say? The guy rips a beam off of a wall and starts smacking you with it.
Big man holding a pipe is what you're about.
He's just beating you with his pipe. And then we got the slash, and the game glitched out. But I like that third level because you're basically on a highway that has gaps in it because of all the destruction from it being lifted in the sky.
Yeah, it's a bridge.
Yeah, I think I like the locale. I like being the first level you're on a sandy beach in Key West.
You're in Key West.
The second level you're on the.
You gotta make it to Shredder, dudes.
You're on the surfboard ski.
Dudes.
Yeah. And then you're in this. You're actually on Manhattan. I like that progression. I just think it's you have a feeling like you're a sense of like traveling, going closer and closer to Shredder. But I think it's great. I mean, you really can't go wrong with the Turtles games, the Turtles beat 'em up games. Like you said, I'd have to play 2 and 3 back to back, and I think at this point I'd have to because there was so much slowdown. I didn't think that there was that much in this game, but there is so much slowdown to the point
where
like
8 characters.
You almost feel like the game's gonna stop especially in that water level where there's like 8 guys jumping out of the water.
Jumbo.
So I'd really have to play them now, kind of back to back. I remember back. I don't know. The way you remember things from when you were younger is different from how they actually are. So I remember it being a lot smoother, but we have to play through it to see. Needless to say, if you have a chance to play one of these games, guys, play Turtles 2 or 3. It's a disservice not to. These are fantastic games.
And luckily they're not expensive. Like around $20-$25.
I think Turtles 3 is a little bit more expensive, but yeah, you're gonna spend $25 for it. I wouldn't pay too much more for it. But the other thing too is the same guy who drew like Turtles in Time and the Hyperstone Heist drew the Turtles 3 cover, and it's pretty awesome cover. I mean,
it is good.
It's a very very gritty sort of. A lot of definition, a lot of character. When you see a game that's got really good cover art, it makes you want to play it even more. And I think
they put like a whole bunch of characters on the front of it.
Well, so it has like Triceratons on the cover, and it has Casey Jones apparently, and neither of them are in the game. But
really?
That was what Konami gave him, this guy to draw. I forget what his name is. I wonder if I had any notes here. I don't think I do. It'll come up. But anyways, Turtles 3, great game. And now we can turn our attention.
And now
we can turn our attention.
The main event.
Well, we got kind of 2 main events. Because the secret is I've actually been playing quite a bit of Hyperstone Heist. And
you son of a bitch.
I know. I'm sorry. Listen, Sal wanted to play it. My son wanted to play it, and yeah, we've been having some fun with the Hyperstone Heist. So we'll get into that here soon. So let's talk about TMNT 4, Turtles in Time. 1991 brought on Super Mario World, Pilot Wings, right? Some of these games that ushered in that 16-bit era, so to speak. But in terms of beat 'em ups
and eat 'em ups,
and especially so when we talk about Turtles 4, I think you have to talk about the other major beat 'em ups, which we've already done at nauseum. But Streets of Rage 2 came out in 1992, I believe, and that game had way bigger sprites than the first game. Everything was just amplified in terms of everything about the characters, the sound, the action, and TMNT 4 was exactly that analog for the Super Nintendo. When you compare Turtles 2 or Turtles 3 to Turtles 4, everything
different system.
I'm just saying, everything is bigger. It was like that was, if you were a beat 'em up fan, that was a reason to jump in at that point, because you weren't getting an experience like that on the Nintendo.
No, and like Final Fight came out a little bit after that.
No, Final Fight was actually close to a launch game for Super Nintendo,
okay.
But it was only one player, so that was. Yeah. I mean, if you were by yourself, that would be fine, But everything is.
That's how I was, man.
Everything's 4 times better when it's 2-player. You know.
Yeah, I see how that math works.
It doesn't just become 2 times better because it's 2 players. It becomes 4 times better because it's just that much more fun to kind of work with a friend through levels like that. And the cool thing about TMNT 4, Sega talked all the time about how they brought the arcade home. Golden Axe. There was the commercial about Sega arcade games, and there's these 2 parents that want to get their son the Golden Axe game, and so he gets a Genesis and brings it home and starts playing on the screen. And then they open the door and they've got the arcade unit and they're like, "We've got your Golden Axe."
Kicking the door.
But he's already playing it on the Genesis and he's like, "I don't need the arcade anymore because I got the Genesis version."
I got it already.
And the arcade version of Golden Axe compared to the home version, arcade version is better.
Well,
it's got more color.
It's
got more animation. It's got scaling. That doesn't occur in the home version. But when you compare Turtles in Time in the arcade to Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo, they're almost, except for the 4 players going down to 2 players. There's 4 players in the arcade, 2 players at home. Other than that, by and large, it was the same game. In fact, it was expanded on because they had the Mode 7 effects. And for anybody who doesn't know, it's basically that view, if you've ever seen a Super Nintendo game where, like an F-Zero, where there's that flat plane that almost makes the game look 3-dimensional.
And it rotates.
And it's rotating and moving around like an F-Zero. Or another example is not a great one, but in Super Mario World, when the bosses, when you beat them, they kind of like stretch and twist around. Yeah. But you had those Mode 7 effects in this game, which expanded on it. But you could throw the foot soldiers into the screen, and that alone was just revolutionary. You never saw a character like that get larger into the screen unless you owned a Neo Geo, and nobody you knew.
Nobody.
Yeah, you talked about how it was crazy that I played and knew somebody who had a Master System back in 1991. Like, think about who had a Neo Geo, even a smaller population. So we weren't seeing scaling at the time, and so Turtles in Time was actually kind of revolutionary for that, and also for being about as arcade perfect as you could get from actually having the arcade unit itself. It did pretty much everything. There were a few frames of animation that were lost in the translation. There were some level introductions that they didn't include. Every time you go to a new level, there would be like this, level introduction. But, they could have put that in. For some reason, they decided not to. There are some bosses in different places. Like I think in Turtles in Time in the arcade, on the pirate ship, I think Taka is in that level as an enemy. Like Taka and Raza or Razor.
As the boss?
Yes.
Instead of Bebop and Rocksteady as the pirates?
It's at least the dog one, and it could be even Rocksteady. I actually forget now which one it is, but there's a couple bosses that are different between the two, which I don't know if they just changed them to make it flow a certain way. And then they actually added the Technodrome level in the Super Nintendo. They didn't have that
Technodrome
in the arcade version. It was just all of the the beginning of Turtles in Time. They get lured to the Technodrome, and Shredder basically tricks them into coming, and he basically has them go back in time. He's got this time machine, and he forces them back in time, and they've got to fight their way back to the future. Kind of dumb, but when you're 8 years old,
it doesn't matter.
It's awesome.
It's Ninja Turtles, man.
And going back in time, you go back in the first level, you're jumping over dinosaurs. It was just, I think it was so funny when you saw foot soldiers being carried in by pterodactyls.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, holy crap, it's awesome.
And then the Rockmen were in that.
Rockmen were in that stage, and I think that's where you fight Slash at the end, right? At the end of that level.
That's a tough boss.
I think he's the toughest boss of the game, and that's like the second level. It's the first level where you go back in time. But then there's there's the Old West level, which kind of reminds me of Sunset Riders.
No, wait, it's not. Isn't
what?
Isn't that like the third level?
So the train?
No, where you go back when you go back in time. Because
the first one is prehistoric Turtlesaurus.
No, but it's not the second level. That's like the third level. Because the first level is New York, where you're on the
Oh,
construction site.
on the girders.
And then you go and you have to fight Shredder, and then that's when he sends you back in time.
That's right. So it's the third level, the third actual level, but the first level back in time.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's right, because Baxter Stockman is the first boss.
Yeah, and the second level is where you're throwing the soldiers into Shredder, and then he jumps through the screen and sends you back in time.
Yeah, that level actually reminds me of we played it the other day, Battletoads, where you're throwing the rocks at the screen and it's cracking.
Oh yeah.
Same kind of thing.
Yeah, it is.
Battletoads on Sega Genesis, some really cool parallax in that game. I was wowed.
It's always about the parallax scrolling.
Well, is it parallax or is it the layers? It looks almost three-dimensional when you're going through that tunnel. If anybody knows Battletoads on the NES, when you're going through the tunnel and you're smashing against the side walls to kill the birds and kind of watch out for the electricity going on your way down. On the Genesis, the graphics aren't really that much better, but for some reason, the foreground image of you going down and the background are very distinct, and it almost looks three-dimensional, the difference between the foreground and the background. I really can't explain it. If you get a chance to play it, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. But as far as Turtles 4 goes, they have that level where you're throwing the guys into the screen, but it's for a purpose. It's because you're trying to actually destroy Shredder's machine gun machine that he's shooting you with. To throw them into the screen, you have to press down and the punch button at a special time, and that's what gets the guys thrown into the screen.
Yeah, it's like after you like hit them once, where they kind of like crouch over.
Oh, that's right.
And then you'll like grab them.
Yeah, they do like the belly grab.
Or it's like when if you run into them, you do like that shoulder dash. You can run into them and you'll kind of hit them, and then you can throw them.
Yes, and we're not going to play Turtles 4 just because we've played it countless times. But the one thing, and this is kind of, we'll talk about this with Hyperstone Heist, but you can't actually decide to run. It's you hold forward.
Yeah, and gradually go
for like a second, and then he'll start to run. And then you can push the action button, and he'll do like this shoulder charge into the guy, which is actually a pretty cool move, and it stuns them. So, but this game was kind of it was one of the best games on. It's one of my favorite games on the Super Nintendo.
The best. It was actually the first game I had on Super Nintendo.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I asked you before this. I said, I don't have any stories for this.
Well, that's why I say that.
That's good. I'm glad you did. And of course, it's the first game that you had on the Super Nintendo. So tell me Tell me this story. How did you? Was that why? Because we know the heartbreak that you had at KB Toys or Caldor.
Yeah, this
with
was
Turtles 2.
This was a makeup for it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a retribution.
So
I don't know. I remember.
Was this?
Well, the Super Nintendo came out in what, 91?
Yes. August, September of 91.
So it had to be, it probably was like March of 92 because that was my birthday.
Oh, so it was like hot.
Yeah.
It was new.
Because it was new, hot. And I remember getting a birthday card because I think this is what I remember getting a birthday card, and on a thing it said that I was getting a Super Nintendo. Just haven't picked it up yet. My mom was gonna get me a Super Nintendo. So that was the Super Nintendo that came with, they came with the two
Mario
controllers
World.
and Mario World.
Yeah.
But we got it at the same time at Caldor, because I remember looking at the Caldor used to have the weekly advertisements, and I think on it, I'm pretty sure they had like their games on sale, and there was like just a picture of like 3 games, and I'm pretty sure it was like Super Tennis.
Wait, this is after you got the Super Nintendo.
No, we haven't even got it yet.
But if you got it in March, this game came out in August of 92.
In 92, so maybe it was that, because it was definitely on my birthday I got it, so maybe it was the year after?
Or it could have been the summertime. You could have gotten it in the summertime.
I'm pretty sure it was my birthday, though, but those were the first...
You sure it wasn't 93?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. It might have been, because I was what? It would have been 8?
No, it would have been
9?
92. It would have been 9 if it was 93.
Yeah, it had to be.
Okay, so 93 then.
Mom wasn't just like, oh, it's July. Want to go get a Super Nintendo?
That's not how it was with us.
Yeah.
We had no money. Everything was strapped.
It's like once a year.
You know.
Birthday and Christmas. That's when you get your stuff.
You know.
That was it.
I gotta stop us here because it's just it boggles my mind that my son has more like Trenton said to me one time. He said your son has more bath toys than toys I ever had as a kid.
We're surrounded by 300 different plush toys of Mario, Sonic,
right,
Luigi, Yoshi.
We just went to the flea market.
Knuckles.
This past week.
The fucking Spyro the Dragon. Who has a Spyro the Dragon plush?
It was Christmas time. I don't know. We found it. It was an impulse buy. I got my TV that day.
There was like 18 Yoshis on the floor.
Well,
granted, they're kind of for you.
Those are kind of mine.
Yeah.
But we did get like 20 action figures this weekend at the flea market, including about
Ninja Turtle
about 10 Ninja Turtle characters because my son now is into the Ninja Turtles.
Well, of course, back then we had to pay full price. We weren't just going to the flea market,
right?
Like getting like 20 of them.
They were like
$10.
I mean, he probably got 25 figures for $15 or $20.
Of course, it was a different era. It's like our dads like watched TV and collected baseball cards. Maybe
my dad
they
didn't
weren't
do
like
that.
They weren't growing up playing video games.
No, my dad collected rutabagas.
He was like celery stalks.
He was like a Russian farmer from the Soviet Union, you know, just
Italian Dwight Schrute.
Yeah, just growing beets. Just growing beets.
See how many different ways you can make eggplant parmesan.
Pretty much. I mean, my father really didn't have any interests. I mean, all it was is, well, no, you had the Italian national soccer team.
You would salute the flag every morning.
That's it. Say the national anthem.
And the Yankees.
Well, we had to convert him.
He was a Mets fan?
He was a Sox fan.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But they broke his heart in '86, so.
So he gave up. That's it.
Well, with us all liking the Yankees and my uncle's liking the Yankees, he's like, screw it, I'll get on board. You know, might as well. The Yankees won the championship in '96, '97, '98. He's like, well, I might as well join a winning team. You know, but you know, he has so many toys.
We like to call that an enabler.
Well, that's a problem that I have, and I get it. But we didn't have any money back then. I mean, I had a Brontosaurus because it was still called a Brontosaurus back then. I had a plastic Brontosaurus. And
a ball and a cup.
I had one Ninja Turtle that I got because it was in the Lost and Found at school.
So I stole it.
Yep. I had a Hershey's truck with kisses on top, and I don't know, a fucking ball of string. I don't know. We had like 4 toys.
And Joe Camel sticker pack.
And we had to like that was our like our bath time was like making up a story out of those things.
Well, in kindergarten, I do remember having a lot of Ninja Turtles figures. I do remember that.
We did not. Cash was tight.
Pockets was tight, baby.
Yeah. You know, if you got a new game, it was probably on the discount rack. That's how I ended up with Super Dodgeball.
Mm.
It was one of those discount CSK Image Soft games, 1999.
Well, it had to be. So it had to have been 93. It came out in the end of 92.
August of 92 is when Turtles 4 came out.
Yeah, and I didn't get it for Christmas. So it must have been that following.
All right, so you got it like a year and a half into its life.
Yeah.
When did you get your Sega?
Probably like that Christmas, probably.
Damn.
Fourth grade. So I got the next year.
Mom must have got a nursing raise.
It was the next year I got the Sega.
So 94.
Yeah, it had to have been the next year. But yeah, I do. I remember looking at the Caldor flyer and had
I mean, that would make sense. That would make sense that it was on sale in 93.
Had Zelda came out? The Link's to
that was almost at the beginning. 91. That Link to the Past came out.
It was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember they had I'm pretty sure the games were on sale were Super Tennis, Zelda, and Turtles in Time. And I think they were $49.99 because usually the games then were $59 or $64.99.
It all depended on how much memory was in them.
Yeah. And that was a game I got. So it was that and Super Mario.
Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win.
And I remember hooking it up on the TV downstairs and like playing it for the first time. It was I don't even remember. I think I might have played it with my friend. Jesse Clark, who lived down the street. I remember he had a birthday party, and then we all went to Chuck E. Cheese. And I think that's the first time I remember playing Turtles in Time.
You played the arcade game?
At Chuck E. Cheese, yeah.
Was that before you got
It had to have been.
The SNES?
Because that's probably why I wanted it so bad.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously you had Turtles too.
I mean, that's like what I'm talking about though, about arcade games. Like I never got to see even a Turtles in Time arcade unit.
Well, because no one was. I don't even think anyone. I think that's kind of when the Ninja Turtles like kind of fell off, like
93, 94.
I don't even think anyone was already talking about. I mean, 5th grade we were kind of. I wasn't really big into it, but everyone. It was like Power Rangers, everything.
Yeah, Power Rangers had become big by around 92, 93.
No one was really talking about Ninja Turtles anymore. But
were
like
you
the games.
Were you into the Power Rangers though?
No,
I wasn't.
I watched it because everyone else was watching it, so it was like in the morning right before school is when it was on.
Yeah.
And then so it was like everyone would be talking about it, so I kind of watched it. I was kind of into it, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Zordon.
By that point, my brother had taught me to masturbate, so.
So you masturbated to the Pink Ranger?
Power Rangers weren't really on my radar.
So more into American Gladiators.
Yeah, watch Storm.
Yeah. It's bulging.
What were some of their names?
I don't. Was it Laser and Storm and
Azer and Laser and Blazer?
All types of Azers.
Yeah.
So Turtles in Time.
So that's a cool story then. You know, kind of your. So wait, you rolled with Super Mario World until that point?
No, I got them at the same time.
Oh,
at the same damn time.
Right. Okay.
It was like the Super Nintendo box, and then I opened the other one.
Okay,
and
what do you do with yourself?
Time.
You have Super Mario World and Turtles in Time at the same time. I mean, you probably thought you struck lotto. I mean.
Yeah, it didn't get much better than that. And then speaking of another beat 'em up, I remember looking through the Funko Land
flyer,
the newspaper
flyer,
to highlight all the games I
used to
wanted.
love those.
And that was when I picked up. I think the next game because I remember thinking I bought it. I think I'd saved up like either birthday money or allowance, and I got Final Fight. That was like the next game I got.
I mean, honestly, you can't go wrong.
And it was
with
only like because it was. I know I didn't spend it. I think it might have only been like $15 at that point, like a used copy, obviously.
Well,
just
I mean,
the cart.
Because probably Final Fight 2 had come out.
Yes.
Final Fight CD probably was coming out.
Because Final Fight came out right at the beginning of the Super Nintendo,
it was,
so
if
it had already been out for a while.
I can't remember if it was a launch game or if it came out right after, but it was very, very close.
Yeah.
That it had come out. And, I mean, that game did well. I mean, it sold over 1 million copies.
Well.
You know, I mean, people
it was good, except for the fact that it just didn't have 2 player. Otherwise, it was pretty much perfect.
But I wonder how much of that is like revisionist history, like now that we can have access to all these 2-player beat 'em up games. Well, now, you know, Final Fight isn't you know, one that you want to go back to, but back then, you know,
what are you talking about?
What I mean is, in the moment when that game came out,
it's still good.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that people look back on that game now and say, oh, it's kind of a piece of shit because it's only 1 player. And I'm saying,
oh no,
like
it's
that, like
it's like a perfect game. It's just that it's not 2 players, so it's
right.
Like,
but people write that off and say, well, it's not, you know.
It's almost like arcade perfect, you know.
I don't know about that, but I'm just saying, you know, back then it didn't matter that it was probably 1 player. Most people were probably only playing it 1 player anyways.
I was.
You know, and it didn't matter that you didn't have a second person, you know.
Yeah.
So anyways, so Turtles in Time is, you know, again, it's one of those when you talk about beat 'em ups, it's probably on the podium, I would say.
It doesn't take a lot of skill, like, because like pretty much anyone can pretty much jump in and play it, and
well, that's beat 'em ups in general.
Yeah.
I would say.
But you know, it's Ninja Turtles.
Right. I mean, it's again, like, going back to the music, like, it's got good music. It's got
the sound effects.
The sound effects are really, really
Even
good.
Even just the intros. Big Apple, 3M.
Yeah. It kind of gets you primed for it. Yeah. You might have to dub some of that in here just to give people the flavor. So.
It's a very colorful game.
So you had Turtles 4 coming in August of '92, and then, you know, we talked about the B team making Turtles 3. Well, you had another B team that was working on Turtles the Hyperstone Heist, which came out on December 5th, 1992. At least that's from what I've researched, that's what I could find.
For that holiday
So
rush.
yeah, so basically at the end of the year, Sega finally got their Turtles game after 4 games coming out on the Nintendo consoles. They finally got theirs, but I would argue December '92, Sega had about as much momentum as they ever had at that point. Sonic 2 had come out.
3 years.
Sonic 2 had come out. Streets of Rage 2 had come out. Their sports games were big. Madden was huge. I don't think Mortal Kombat had come out yet. That was, I think, 93 or 94.
93. Oh, Mortal Kombat came out in 93.
In the arcade?
No, I think that was like their Mortal Kombat Day was in like September.
Of 93?
I think so.
We'll have to check on that.
I want to say that.
We'll have to check on that. But anyways, I think that was, that was kind of the point in time where if Sega was going to get a game, they that would be the point, and they did. Again, it was a B team that there was only one person that actually worked on any of the previous games, and his name was Hiromi Sumida. He was a product designer on the game, and he did a lot of stuff with the Tiny Toons games back in the day.
On Nintendo?
On Nintendo, on Super Nintendo, on Genesis, like Buster Bust Loose.
Well, yeah, those ones on Nintendo were great.
I can only speak to Buster Bust Loose and Acme All-Stars, and I think those games are great. So I'll take your word for it on the NES game.
That's good.
We'll have to track that one down. But and he also worked on a lot of games for the MSX, which was a Japanese computer. Metal Gear, the original Metal Gear game, actually was on MSX. That's kind of like the game that most people in the West know that system for, or that computer for. That and Vampire Killer, which was sort of a arranged version of Castlevania 1. And so the Hyperstone Heist is kind of sort of like an amalgamation between Turtles in Time, Turtles 2, the arcade game, and Turtles 3, the Manhattan Project. It basically takes the levels from Turtles 2 and Turtles 4 and the sprites and the graphics from Turtles 4 and the story from the Manhattan Project and kind of smashes them all together into one game. And so basically the story is that with the Hyperstone that they were using in Turtles 3, Shredder basically shrinks the Manhattan and takes the Statue of Liberty and moves it and puts another challenge out to the Turtles that they got to come and attack him, essentially. And the thing about Turtles, the Hyperstone Heist, that I think is the most significant, but aside from the fact that it kind of combines aspects of all of these different games, to me, and it might seem like a small thing to most people, is the run mechanic. There's actually a dedicated button on the Genesis controller that is a run button, which makes it so you feel so much more nimble to get from one side of the screen to another or to attack a character by not having to wait. The difference between Turtles 4 and Turtles the Hyperstone Heist is, for the most part, besides the scaling and the rotation levels, is the ability to run on command. And it makes such a big difference, I think, in how you play that game. And so I've been playing Hyperstone Heist for, I would say, about a week and a half with my little guy. And I'll tell you, we're having a blast. And it's, I think, one of the reasons why he's got this interest in the Turtles so much now. I mean, we got a Turtles balloon. He bought 10 different Turtles characters. I've got a buddy of mine who sells action figures, looking for the 4 Turtles original characters from 1989 for me, because Sal wants them. Of course, Trenton would say I'm enabling.
I've actually still haven't played the Hyperstone Heist.
Well, we're gonna remedy that here. Just a couple more tidbits. So the stages, like I said, are from Turtles 2, the arcade game, and Turtles in Time, but they're longer. So they've been able to stretch them out, put more enemies in them, and kind of make it work where that they were changing some of those levels enough so that the flow between them would work, because you have, the arcade game and Turtles in Time are two completely different games, but they kind of put them together. One of the other significant facts to this game is that it's the only game that has Tatsu in it, and Tatsu is from the live action movies. He's the second in command to Shredder, and he's the dojo boss. If we remember Turtles 2, you fight that mechanical samurai or shogun in that level.
That's one of the towards the end.
Yeah, so you fight Tatsu at the end of that level in the Hyperstone Heist. So they do that level in this game, and you fight Tatsu at the end. So that's pretty much the difference there. So it's one of those games that's not really talked about that much because Turtles in Time was so big that it sort of overshadowed it. And Turtles was, for the most part, a Nintendo property. When you think back on that time, Turtles really wasn't synonymous with Sega. It was Nintendo. So
it was just Nintendo. Nintendo was the only thing there,
Well, by the end of '92, I think it could be argued that Sega had stepped it up. I think at that point they were probably neck and neck, But us growing up with Nintendo, we still kind of saw it as that because all the Turtles games were on those Nintendo consoles, and hence you've never played it, and I didn't know of it back then either. And I pretty much grew up a Sega kid, and I didn't even know about it. So, all right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fire up this bad boy and see what Trenton Wright thinks of it. We'll be right back. Okay, so we are back from playing Turtles: The Hyperstone Heist.
The stone has been hoisted.
I think the most glaring revelation that we got is we pretty much played as much as a Beavis and Butthead episode, and the game was over.
Yeah, about 13 minutes.
Of course, I did not have to continue, but Trenton's skills need to be honed a little bit.
Yes.
Got caught with
right in the last level.
Yeah, got caught with those Mausers a little bit.
Caught with my mouth open.
Oh, well, sometimes that happens. But yeah, I mean, the one thing I could say about the Hyperstone Heist is the action is really, really tight. I mean, it is a really fun game to play. Music is really good. You made a comment that you thought that the sounds were a little muffled or a little muted.
Yeah, when you're hitting like the foot soldiers, and then when like you hit them like 3 times or whatever, and they blow up, it's just kind of like, it's like on the Super Nintendo one, when you're hitting them, it's got like a real bass thump to it. It's like doof doof doof.
Yeah, I never really thought of it. I mean, when you mentioned it, I heard it and I was like, it sounds like a wet towel hitting a wall.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily bad. It just kind of sounds like a wet blanket almost.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not as like impactful.
But if you had never played the Super Nintendo version, you only had a Sega back then, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Except for the levels, it's just kind of like, here's a bunch of levels and they just kind of go. Like what was the one? You're on like the ship.
The ghost ship.
Yeah,
the mysterious
ship.
Ghost ship.
But before that, you're just like in New York.
No,
right?
Before that, you're on the surf. You're on the
No.
Turtles 3,
I know, but that's the same level
surfboards.
though. But the level before that.
Oh, level
just
you just start in the sewers and then
all of a sudden
you get onto the streets the streets of Manhattan.
A mystery ghost ship.
Yeah. Well, you start in the sewers, you go into Manhattan, then you go back in the sewers to fight Leatherhead.
It's like you're technically not going back in time, but you're on a pirate ship.
Well, you're on the mysterious ghost ship. Because, it's
bounce those ghosts.
It's the Hyperstone Heist. Why not? Why don't you have a mysterious ghost ship, Yeah, I mean, they tried to tie the games together. Obviously, it didn't work maybe as well as they wanted to, but all in all, I mean, it's an awesome game. I mean, I really, again, like I said before, I really like the run mechanic, the dedicated run button, because it really speeds up the game and it makes it, I don't know, flow really well in terms of like, action moment to action moment.
I still prefer Turtles in Time.
I
do like the little bonus stages in Turtles in Time. Well, where you collect the pizzas and at the end it tallies up the mystery pizzas. Remember, there's like 2 of them, and there's a sewer level where you with the ow my toe where you collect
Yeah.
like the mystery pizzas and it tells you how many pizzas you got and you get like a
Oh,
little extra
yeah.
bonus. And then there's the mode 7 level where you're in like that
Neon Knight
city.
Riders.
That's another one. So those are kind of cool.
Yeah.
This one it had that level where we were getting the mystery pizzas, but it didn't do anything. Remember? When we were on the surfboard.
Yeah, it was giving you points towards an extra life. Yeah, I mean, like I said in the last episode, Hyperstone Heist is kind of like, it almost feels like the leftover shit crammed together.
They literally just threw levels together from the different Turtles games, and that's what it was. There's the game.
But gameplay is king, right, of anything, and that makes the game really, really good. If you play this game, you're going to be happy. You're going to enjoy it. You know, you're not going to play for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. But if you're
25 minutes.
But if you've got a friend who's never played it before, it's a fun little romp to get through. It does have the sprite work of the Turtles in Time game, and the 2 arcade games. But it's just really short. It's just really short, and go into it with that expectation, and I think you'll be fine. Like I said, the music is really good. It's kind of like a Japanese flair to it from level to level.
It does, yeah. It does sound similar to like the Super Nintendo style music. It's not like that standard like that Sega. I don't know how to describe
kind
the
of like
music.
Bassy twang.
Yeah, it almost sounds like it's like it could have been on like the Super Nintendo version.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, it's a great game. I think Turtles in Time is still my favorite out of all of them. But,
yeah, the voiceover stuff in the Super Nintendo version is, I don't know which one's more accurate, but I don't know. You're just so used to the Super Nintendo one, where they're like Cowabunga, and this one they're like Cowabunga. It's like kind of like high pitched.
Yeah, I mean the Genesis doesn't do voices as well as the Super Nintendo. I mean the technology is like 3 years older than the Super Nintendo is, but it hangs, and I think because of the resolution, it's a little bit crisper. I think the Super Nintendo game is a little bit, it's like that effect of the Super Nintendo having a lower resolution. It kind of stretches things out a little bit.
Yeah.
But no, the Super Nintendo game is, if you had to choose between the two, I still would go with Turtles in Time.
Oh yeah.
But this is definitely a great option. All of these games, there's a reason why they have such a legacy, is that you really can pick up any of those games except for the first one, which of course I still have a place in my heart for, but we all know what that one is. But those 2, 3, 4, and I would even include Hyperstone Heist, they've created really a legacy for themselves in time of just being one of those upper echelon type games, and really cemented them itself as a premier franchise in gaming forever. Definitely one of the top beat 'em up franchises ever that's been created. And Turtles themselves have just been, when you think about everything that's ever come out for comics or cartoons, Turtles kind of, I mean, they still make Turtles stuff nowadays. There's still Turtles movies coming out, like the live action movies.
And the toys. Yeah.
Which I don't know how good those are, but for some reason the Turtles have sort of subsisted for a very, very long time. And, this is one of those things to go back to where, it's kind of cool that they're still around and they're still producing stuff, but then I can show my son all these old, awesome, amazing games that he can actually pick up and play because he's too young to get Zelda, or any kind of a game where there's holes where he can fall into, like a Super Mario or anything like that. He can pick up Streets of Rage, he can pick up Turtles in Time and have a blast, and that's great for me being a dad because I can play along with him, and it's a special moment between us that we can share together, and there's a guy that I know who's in my business group, and he told me a couple of years ago, he said, and this is for any of you guys out there that are parents, he said, whatever you do, whatever you really, really enjoy, make sure that your kids know that and they're a part of it, because if you don't, they're going to grow up and find other things that they love, and you're going to have nothing in common with them. And so it completely resonated with me that I want to instill the things that I love into my son, because I think that's the place that we're going to have connection with for the rest of our lives. There's not a whole lot that me and my dad shared together, except for a couple of things with sports.
And rutabagas.
And rutabagas and beets and beet farms. And how to eat cabbage 7 days a week. But, yeah, so that kind of resonates with me. But is Turtles in Time your favorite out of the whole?
Oh, out of all of them?
Out of all of them. Which one
I still think,
is like the closest to you, like that you hold as like your favorite? And I mean, it might not be the best game, but
I think Turtles 2. Just I think it's a longer game. It's a little bit more. It's definitely more difficult. But I would think probably, man, I don't know. It's like Turtles 2 and Turtles in Time. It's like 1A, 1B. It's like you could switch back and forth. I think Turtles 2.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
I don't think we've still haven't like beat it like
we've
properly.
Never. No. We're gonna one of these days we will. One of these days we'll put it together. I think it's just practice. I think it's just doing it more and more and more. You know. I mean, how much time do we have to play video games?
Practice.
Right? Yeah. No, I don't know if I necessarily can pick one because I didn't really grow up with these games when they came out, and it's hard for me to have sort of an emotional tie from back then. You know, except for the first one, and I'm definitely not going to pick the first one as my favorite. But I'd have to say I'm kind of right there with you, somewhere between the second one and the fourth one. You know, I mean, I'll go with Turtles in Time. Fuck it, I'll say Turtles in Time because
that's a bold move.
Not really. I mean, it's probably the easy move because it's the one that. Yeah. I didn't know you were joking. But yeah, I mean, it's. I think technically it's the best game. I think it's you know, it's a blast. It has great graphics, great music. The explosions, the contact is all great.
Yeah, I mean, if it's like you're just trying to play a game real quick for like a half hour or so,
right.
Like that, yeah, that's
which is our lives.
This is definitely the perfect game, because I mean, obviously Turtles 2 takes a day. I mean, it's like definitely over an hour and a half at least to go through that whole game. But man, it's just really it's just so, especially because you know, and then Nintendo, like the graphics are really good. Everything about the game is great.
Yeah.
I mean, Super Nintendo, you kind of expect, you know, that to be the game the way it is. But yeah, just Turtles 2. It's hard, but it's, you know, that difficult where you want to keep going, again.
You want to conquer it. You want to defeat it, and it's almost like you enjoy not that you enjoy losing, but it's just like, I don't know. When we beat it, we're gonna be like, what else? What do we do now with our lives?
That's why I want to play it more, because it's a little more difficult. So we haven't beat it. As in Turtles is just.
We can make that
easy.
happen.
Turtles in Time it's just an easy game, but it's I mean, it's fun.
Right. But it's kind of like, at this point we've played it so many times that it's just,
yeah,
you know, it's not as challenging. It's not because we're great at video games. It's just that it's an easier game. But it would be nice to kind of get back into Turtles 2 a little bit more and try to beat it. So let us know if you guys have been able to beat it on a straight run.
I'm sure people have.
Yeah.
No problem. They're probably like, yeah, it's pretty easy. I don't know what you're talking about.
I guess, yeah, I don't know. What's wrong with us then, huh? I've been playing games since 1986, 1987. What's wrong with me?
Progressively worse.
Yeah. So, in other news, while we were at our break, I managed to snag a copy of Herc's Adventures on Sega Saturn for $225.
No big deal.
What have you done with your life?
Where did you learn to fly?
So, I think we're getting close here, folks. I've got probably, if any of you don't know, we're trying to complete a Sega Saturn American set of games, and I think we're about 80 or 85 games left to go, and
in the home stretch.
Yeah, not that many more expensive games to go. Right now we're staring at Resident Evil, Mega Man X4, and Mega Man 8. So one day it'll happen, and then again I won't know what to do with myself. But all right, any parting thoughts? I think we've said all there is to say about Turtles, and we can kind of move on. What's our next episode going to be, Trent?
I don't know yet. We haven't made a final decision.
So we've talked about a couple
Road
of
Rash.
Things. We talked about Road Rash, and we've talked about possibly WrestleMania, the arcade game, playing a couple versions of that. We posted on our Instagram, the Super Nintendo version and the Saturn version. But maybe let us know if you guys have a choice between Road Rash, a couple versions of Road Rash, or WrestleMania. I definitely have some memories about Road Rash growing up. Unlikely memories, actually. But I don't have really much experience with WrestleMania. You definitely have.
No.
Obviously, being the WrestleHead.
No way.
Experience. You have experience with both, so we could go both ways. Pause on that. we could play either game, and I think we'll have some stories to tell for you guys. So let us know. Hit us up.
Here's a little story I got to tell.
Hit us up with a comment. You can
about two bad games that you know so well. They started way back in history. Beastie Boys.
No, it's great. I was enjoying it. We're at the Turbo Duo on Instagram. You can email us at theturboduo@gmail.com. And then we still have a YouTube channel. You just search the Turbo Duo. And we do have some videos up there, some pickup videos.
Then we post the podcast on there as well.
Yep. And
so eventually we'll try to do it as a. I'd like to do it as like a video. Just record us, not really doing anything extra, but just have a video to accompany the audio. Put it on YouTube.
Well, if we could get
do like that.
Yeah, but if we could get the capture device to not speed up.
Oh well, yeah, that's probably a simple thing. We just gotta test it out. Do some more gameplay, play-alongs.
Yep. And then at the end of the year, we'll get into retro convention season.
Summer's gonna heat up, baby.
Yep. Well, is it Retro World Expo is in what, September?
September. I'm sure we could find
something in the summertime.
Someone close.
That would be kind of cool.
New York.
Get some footage.
Somewhere close.
So look out, things happening on the Turbo Duo. So
we want the game, sucker.
Oh gosh.
We coming for you.
Can't have enough. But well, thank you guys for listening. Have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week or weekend, whenever you're listening to this. Hopefully, if you're driving, you're not turning off the road when myself or Trenton says a weird, wacky comment, and you're staying safe out there. So enjoy, keep it retro, keep gaming, and stay classy.
Retro. Safety blankets.
Oh, good morning, Vietnam. What did you say? Security blanket?
Yeah, like a safe space blanket.
Safe place?
Yeah.
Like an army blanket?
No.
What does that look like?
A safe place. Where no one can offend you.